You will listen to KCC Live 99.8 FM each and every Wednesday with me, Miguel, and I have been chatting here to a fabulous young lady, I'm going to call her. She is absolutely remarkable and inspiring for many different reasons, and I wish that we had 3 hours of today's show that we could keep her here, but she's a busy lady and I get an hour slot. But everyone say hello to Frances, and you say hello to everyone.
Hello everybody, and thanks for inviting me, Miguel.
No, I'm absolutely honoured to have you in. So if you want to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. So let's start about the organisation that you work for.
I'm the chief executive of an organisation called Health at Work, and it is what it says on the tin, really. We do every aspect of workplace health, ranging from training, support, guidance. We do health and safety, but we also run something called the National Workplace Wellbeing Charter, where we actually own the intellectual property for that work, and we deliver. It's a framework for business, really, to help you be a healthier employer. And in doing that, you can start to see the changes in productivity, in the bottom line. But the most important thing is what you'd have is a really focused, happy workforce. And it's been tremendously successful.
So as well as being the chief executive of an amazing organisation, and we've had some great support and work alongside you guys, which we're really grateful for. Currently, you're on a campaign for something called Tired, and we've been supporting this. But for those of you who don't know, there is a backstory behind this. It isn't something that's just came about of late, and something that happened from a tragic accident from a young man who I have heard and learned some remarkable and inspiring stories, and something of the youth of today and society would learn from. And I know you're very happy to share your story to our listeners today and how the campaign has came about.
Well, Michael was 18 and he was travelling back from a music festival, which was on the Isle of Wight at the time. And the coach he was travelling on crashed on the way, and it killed him instantly. Also a young girl called Kerry Ogden, who was only 23, the driver, and there were many young people very, very seriously injured. Michael's travelling friend, Zach, has gone through absolutely gruelling physiotherapy for the last 5 years to enable him to walk again. So it was absolutely horrific, and that was completely life-changing, as you can imagine. And, you know, as a mum, there is nothing worse that you could ever hear. It's something I think any mother dreads, to lose one of your children. But then the following year at Michael's inquest, we found out that crash was caused by a 19-and-a-half-year-old tyre, and it was legal. And, you know, even saying it to you now, it still makes my stomach churn, because it doesn't even make sense when the words come out of my mouth. And I remember my eldest son, Joe, just stood up and said, "It's older than Michael. How can it be legal?" And, you know, we were flabbergasted. To be fair, even the coroner himself couldn't quite believe that tyres that old were legal. He did write to the government and say, you know, he was concerned that there would be future loss of life with tyres this old, particularly on passenger service vehicles, coaches and buses. And, I mean, every tyre on that coach was old. You know, the spare alone was 13.5 years old. The actual company was banned for life from ever operating again. That was only because I really pushed for a public inquiry into how they operated, because there was a real history behind this company. But apart from that, they walked free, and, you know, they recorded accidental death, which is something I found, well, I just can't accept, and I won't accept. So since then, what I've done is campaigned with, you know, we relaunched a campaign. I campaigned from 2013, but I then relaunched it this year with the support of a marketing agency, Agent Marketing, and we've now set up a campaign called Tired, and it's just growing from strength to strength. And the purpose of that campaign is very simple. We want an age limit on tyres, and we want an age limit of 10 years, which is still an awful long time to have a tyre. But the fact that rubber perishes, because it's rubber, if you expose it to the elements, then it doesn't matter even if it's unused. The fact that it's old, it won't be safe. And what happens with tyres of that age is they delaminate, they start to come away from the wall. So you actually can't see the damage, which is why the only way you can do this is to put an age limit in. the tyre that caused the crash that Michael was in still had 40% of its tread, but it was so old, and it was second-hand as well, and we don't even know where they got it from. It's probably been laying out somewhere in the wind, rain, but we just don't know. So the campaign is, we believe, is very simple, and when I started out on this, to be honest with you, I actually thought I was doing the right thing. Well, I know I'm doing the right thing, but I thought I'd be knocking on an open door with government because they didn't even know this was an issue. And I went with my local MP at the time, Maria Eagle, who was then Shadow Transport Secretary. And she said, she was shocked. She went, I didn't know this had gone on. We were in government for 17 years and I didn't know this was happening. Now I do. I mean, it obviously is a loophole and it needs to stop. It needs to change. So we went to meet the government and we gave them a solution. And the solution is they do it at every MOT. They record what is called a dot code. So on the side of every tyre, even your own car tyres, there is a dot code. It's a very long number. The last 4 digits will tell you the week and year of manufacture. So that's already there. So what we're asking for is you record it at MOT, and if they're older than 10 years, regardless of their outward condition, then you change them. And we also know there's a practice, because this came up in a parliamentary debate that I had when Steve Rotherham was the MP for Walton, that some of the unscrupulous operators out there, who are the ones we're trying to target with this, will get a set of tyres for MOT and then they'll change them. So they'll always pass their MOT on the tyres because they just use a good set, and sometimes they pass them round. So if we have this dot code, this recording, then that would stop, because it would start to flag up that they've had the same tyres on, or those tyres were on another vehicle somewhere else, and how come the tread hasn't gone down. So it would start to change things, but unless we introduce legislation, it won't stop. It just won't stop, Miguel. And the government will put out guidance on it, but guidance means nothing. So whatever happens now, if they want to continue using old tyres, there's absolutely nothing in the government's power to stop them. So
when I seen this campaign go out and we all supported it, so for the next day I expected to see on social media, the law's changed, we've done this, it's a great round of applause, massive success. You've said when we've been here all morning, if you never want anyone to have to go through what you've gone through, I just took it as a given that that's what I would have seen the next day, that it had been changed. And I was absolutely flabbergasted to then see the different side of the story of that. Now there's an additional campaign that we have to get X amount of signatures on for a petition for it to be heard again, when to me, it's saving lives, it's safety, it's absolutely common sense. I still don't understand why there has to be a debate to have this passed.
Well, I think you are along with everybody else in the country, even some members of the government themselves, but we just can't get this past those who are in power. So the ministers and the Secretary of State, for some reason, they don't understand this logic, and we don't understand why they don't understand the logic. They tell me they need more research. I don't know why. I mean, I would say what happened to us is research.
It's in black and white.
It's in black and white. It's the second coroner that's written to them. So 2 coroners have written to them over a period of 2 years to tell them that there's been, an issue with old tyres. There was a Gloucestershire coroner who did the same when a family were killed in a people carrier because of an old tyre. And I genuinely, and I think so did, those who were supporting me, believe we were knocking on an open door. And we have met resistance after resistance after resistance. It doesn't cost the government anything. It doesn't cost the taxpayer anything. The responsible operators out there, we've got backing of National Express Coaches, Big Green Coach Company. For those who go to festivals, that will most likely be the operator you go with. Recently, Shearing's contacted us to say, we are responsible operators. So those big operators, or those responsible operators, I mean, we've got city site tours in Liverpool. So they don't have to be the big national ones saying, well, safety is our priority. We would never compromise on safety, and tyres are the only thing that keep us from the road. So they don't get it. The only ones that this would affect are those operators, like those from Merseypride who were operating the coach Michael was travelling on. It's only those type of operators who don't care, who are unscrupulous. It was proven through a public inquiry, and they did get fined as well, that no matter what guidance you put out, they will never follow it, because money is more of a driver. So they will put profit over life above anything else. So it doesn't even affect, it probably will affect those operators that, so either they up their game and they increase their safety and they make sure their tyres are safe, or they come out of business.
Again, everything you're saying is common sense.
It is.
So what do you need? What do we need to do? What is going to have this changed and turned around then?
Well, what we desperately need now is signatures on our
And
petition.
how many do we need?
We need 100,000
Okay.
to get a debate. Now, it's the www.gov UK petition that we've used. That's the only one the government recognised. To do that, you have to sign up to the petition, then you have to click on a link to get your email. And I think it's that second bit that a lot of people don't do, so that it doesn't register. If you go to our website, www.tyred.org.uk, you'll see all the details there. We're on Twitter, tyred.org.uk. We're on Instagram, Facebook.
So do we need to be over 16 to do this?
No,
or
you don't. It actually, that was very surprising, because we went to speak to a group of very young, up-and-coming, aspiring politicians, if you like, and we checked it out, and you don't have to be.
Okay, so what is our population of Liverpool City region?
It's about, 600,000, is it?
Okay, so this is a day's work, isn't it?
Yeah.
This can be done. So basically what we need is organisations who have staff, families, schools, everyone else, as a click of a button. So I struggle with technology, so I can see where some people have had some barriers, and I've had my team and everyone else do our sign the petition for you. So there's a lot of people who can get support with social media or internet or whatever else, or places that pop up. So for me, it's just going to take one day. Everyone just needs to get behind this, get a laptop. The kids of today are social media savvy. We've been speaking about this. And if there's 600,000 people across our city region who all will understand and know what has happened, guys, it's a job, simple, well done, to get behind this and to get rid of a silly debate that doesn't need to be happening, and get 100,000 signatures. So for me and anyone who's listening today, or if you've got a place of work, a community centre, a school, a college, a football stadium where something can go on the screen, you could deal with this and help support it within one day with the reach of our city region. And from what I've heard today and what I've followed, I feel it's the least that people can do, and it's something that's just logic. Yes. So we've spoke about the campaign, and we'll touch back on it a little bit. But what I'm touched by is an inspiring young man. And before we talk a bit more about Michael and his journey and his love of music, we know he's a musician, and I know you have a song of his to play. So do you want to introduce his song?
Yeah, well, actually, Michael wrote the song while he was studying at Nosey Community College. So it's called Rise and Fall, and it's by Michael Molloy and sang by Alex Evans.
Okay, guys, so as you will have heard, that was an amazing song. We have Frances Molloy in here today, who is Michael's mum, and we spoke about a campaign called Tired, which we are hoping and praying everyone gets behind for 100,000 signatures. But you will all agree of a genius, of a musician, of a young talent. Music, for me, it has no language barriers. It connects people. And you've spoke passionately today about his love, his change, that what you've learned from the music industry to his. You described him as a round peg in a square hole, and of creative learning and his giving, and what you've learned from that. So let's speak a little bit about Michael and his love for music and his hopes and dreams.
Well, from a very young age, Michael always read. He just loved books, and he would get lost to them. If I said to Michael when he was about 8, 9, you'd take him, I don't know, to somewhere like a fairground, or you say we'll go to a bookshop. He'd rather go to the bookshop. It was like, his eyes would light up. He just loved it. So he always had a passion for books. He always read, and he liked to write short poems, short stories. And then,
what age did you notice this?
Well, he told me at 8. He said,
wow,
I want to be a writer. So we used to follow book signings everywhere. If there was a book signing going on in the city, we would have been there. He wrote to Brian Jakes constantly. There was a guy called Philip Pullman who he loved. Frank Cottrell Boyce. He used to go to all of Frank's readings. So he just loved reading, and to him and writing. It was very, obviously, I think, something very therapeutic for him. But then we had a family party, as you do. I remember it was a Boxing Day, and my sister plays guitar, and so does my brother-in-law. So, we had this usual family party, everyone's singing, and Michael said to me, "Mum, can I get a guitar?" So he was 12. So we got him, a guitar, and he started to play away. And then we got him a couple of lessons with somebody, and he very quickly outgrew that. And he kind of I just can't then recall it never being out of his hand. So he then turned that into to kind of writing music, and he formed a band with a couple of friends from school called Hostile Radio. Well, they had a number of names, but they ended up as Hostile Radio. They had a lead singer who didn't stay, and then of course they got Alex in, who's got an amazing voice, and they started to get a following. And Michael came here to Knowsley College to study music production, because he wanted to know more about the industry. He liked the production side of things as well as writing. He didn't sing, played guitar, and he could write. So it was just his absolutely every waking moment. He just lived and breathed it. And the community, I think, that it brought him into was where he belonged. And I think music was where he found himself. So throughout school, I always did feel Michael was a square peg in a round hole, because he, some of the subjects that he would do, he didn't like. I don't think he particularly liked school, to be honest with you. But when he found music, it was like, that's it. There was no question, there was no plan B. How many times, as I said to him, as every mum does, what's plan B? Why don't you do a degree? And I remember him standing in the kitchen. He was 6'6", so a lot taller than me. Yeah, amazingly blue eyes, which most people will always talk about, which struck. And when he was, when he kind of locked eyes with you, and because he could be really feisty, and he went, there is no plan B. You have to listen to what I'm saying. I will make this. There is no if. It will happen. I am going to do this. This is my life. And I remember kind of almost laughing, saying to him, okay, come on. You don't have to get so dramatic about it. And he went, no, but you really need to understand, Mum, this is my life. And there was something, the belief that he had was just second to none. And he was prepared to really work for it. And my God, he did. He worked so hard.
And at such a young age. And you've spoke today of him, and now you look at that when he said, he's came to college, and he's making his whole life, and how he was so driven to make it. And then when you spoke to me about when you've put one of Michael's songs out and getting into the music industry, I think from listening to you, what you've realised is that how much knowledge he did have, and the skill set he's developed, not from just playing a guitar, but from the business side of things to publishing to, how he wanted to stay true as an artist. And when we spoke today, you fed that back to me about, oh my God, Michael had said this, or Mum, this is what they'll want to do, or everything else, and give you a real insight to the music industry and business.
Well, it was my eldest son, Joe, who was very adamant. He said, Michael can't be remembered for someone who died in a crash. He's got to be remembered for who he was as a musician. So he made it his mission to get the song out. And, it's a beautiful song. You couldn't... I haven't had anyone that's not listened to it who hasn't moved in some way. And so Joe went on this mission to say, we've got to get this song out. And we went back to where it was produced. And the guy there, the lovely guy, he said, he tried to get a couple of contacts up about how we would get this song out there. And, he'd already had interest. So when Michael went to Festival, this was one of the things that was even, if it's possible, even more cruel. There was a producer who'd come up, and he came up at the time Michael was in Festival, and I said to him, well, don't go, stay here. And this is what he was saying, no, Mum, this is my life. And going to festivals, I don't go on holiday. Stevie Wonder was playing. He said, in my lifetime, I'm probably never going to get a chance to see Stevie Wonder. So, and it's kind of it's a different type of festival, so I really want to go. And even though this guy was coming up, he said, if he likes me, he'll come back. And it was kind of that that was just how he wasn't. He said, I'm not just going to stop everything just because this guy's coming up from London. So we got into a studio and we spoke to producers, and I was still in a state of, I didn't even know what was happening. I really hadn't spoken to anybody. I hadn't spoken to the media. My eldest son had handled all of that. God knows how, but he had. And we were faced with people coming in saying, oh, we'll take a minute off it here, or we'll do this with it. And I kind of, all the stuff that Mike, it was like his voice was in my head. And all the stuff he told me would go on, what happened, and this is what people do. And it will all be about a commercial. It won't be about you. It won't be about the artist. And I just went, that's it. It stops. And, you know, Joe was texting me in the meeting saying, make this stop now. Because he knew as well. We both knew what Michael would be thinking. And I kind of knew, I thought, he wouldn't warm to the people in this room today. He would just, no matter what they offered him. And I remember sitting there saying, you know, the one thing I can say about my own son, and I think anybody who knew him, who played with him, there are many musicians in the city who didn't know him. If you'd have put 100 grand in front of him, even at 17, 18, but then you told him this is what he had to do, he'd say no. Doing it my way. I'm a musician.
Which is amazing. And in a world that we live in today, we've chatted about with social media, and you know, it has its benefits as we've both seen, and so does TV and everything else of what you can do. But you also look at, you know, we've discussed of nothing beats hard work and dedication. So you can be platformed to an overnight success. But if you look at true traditional artists and something that Michael was pioneering, you know, the youth of today especially can learn a lot about this in terms of, you know, there's many different route paths into the industry, and hard work and dedication and commitment to your art, you know, is something that's priceless.
It is. And I mean, I'm not a musician, but I kind of know this world, you know, in my own way because of him. We battled to get his song played on national radio, even though it charted. Rob DeBank, who runs Bestival, he put it out on his label. They were absolutely brilliant. They don't edit any of their artists. They let them go out as they are. That was exactly the kind of record label we needed. And, you know, we literally went on a campaign against the BBC at the time because they wouldn't play the song. And it was simply because they have these sets of rules. Others were commercial stations. You know, then we did get some people like Dermot O'Leary. He just broke the mould. He said, this is a great song, I'm going to play it. Terry Christie and others, you know, so we started to get radio stations going, but I love the song. And these are not sympathy votes. You know, we wouldn't risk our own shows, or we wouldn't risk our own career. This song needs to be
genuine
heard.
hit.
And so people put it out there. What Michael used to say to me was, if you look at the best bands, the best musicians in the world, they won't be in the charts. They will be playing to hundreds of thousands of people. They will be selling records, but they won't be doing it in that tradition. That's not an aspiration for most of them. They want a following. And he used to say to me, people used to talk to him about going on, you know, shows where you can be catapulted. And he used to go absolutely ballistic and say, it will never, ever happen. I'll never do it. No matter what they offer me, I'll never do it. You need a following. And to get a following, you've got to work. You've got to get out there. You've got to gig. You've got to give people something to listen to. And you've just got to work your backside off. I mean, he probably didn't say it in those terms. He said a bit more expletive than that. And he lived, you know, they were like 15, 16 in the studio. And they tell us mums they were in each other's houses, but they were sleeping in the studio because they just didn't stop.
Yeah. Well, I want to speak a little bit about hard work and dedication in a minute, but I just want to take it back to the music. So we ask all our guests to play songs, and we're ready for your second track. So I want to know what it is and why you picked this song.
So Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Well, Michael used to play this himself. He would cover it when he did gigs. And it's a song that has become increasingly more important to me. When I've had very dark moments, you know, and I've struggled, that song tended to appear. And it come on, and I always felt like it was him. And I kind of just picture Otis Redding sitting on the dock of a bay alone. And that's how I felt, very, very alone. And the songs meant something to me. And then I was very fortunate this year to go to San Francisco and go to the place where he wrote it. So I mean, Otis Redding. Yeah. I don't really think it needs more introduction. We just want them back. Well,
I hope you enjoy this, our listeners. Okay, guys, so I am in the studio with the amazing and inspiring Frances Molloy. And you've heard today, you know, of a remarkable son. You've also heard about a campaign that, guys, we need 100,000 signatures. We spoke about how many people are in our city region. So for me, that should just be easily done now. It should be a click of a button. There's help and support if anyone isn't great on emails or social media, etc. But this is a remarkable lady who is a chief executive of an organisation, is on a campaign, is a grieving parent, and most importantly, is given so much love and of herself. I've personally sat there and had conversations and support and help with our own campaigns. And, you know, before you even start your day and you go and have to bring this energy to your employers, face the world, look at what you want to do. There's certain things that, you know, you have to protect yourself and a resilience. And for anyone who's going through any type of hard time, is struggling, is being in a dark place, how do you manage to do this?
Oh, I mean, there's no question I've been in very, very dark places that I would never want anyone else to experience or go to. But there will be people out there, sadly, who are in those places. And I think these sound cliched, these things, but it's taken me a long time myself to learn. I've been through hell and back, and I think I've accepted. I'm always in pain. I've always got a pain. I'm grieving. I'm never going to not grieve for my own child. I mean, it's just you can't do it. I just don't know. I don't know personally how you would do that. So what I've had to do is I haven't quite accepted that Michael is gone. I mean, I struggle with that still, and I do still pretend at times he's here, and I think I need that. It kind of helps me to cope. But I've accepted this pain, and I'm living with this pain and managing it as best as I can. There are days when it's more powerful than me. But the thing that I learned, and again, it's taken me a few years, is about being kind to me. If I'm not kind to myself, I can't be kind to my two other sons, Joe and Liam, who clearly need me and always will. Because I'm holding things together, and that sometimes feels a massive burden to carry. But it's what it is, and I can't change it. So, you know, I've said to many people, when you lose your child, there is no question that you don't consider about taking your own life. I mean, I think every mother would have thought I'd be better off not here because I can't live with this. But you've got two other children, well, I've got two other children who I love equally. So that choice, that decision is immediately taken away. So you then have to go, well, while I'm here, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through each day? So I have given myself things like I work, I've got this campaign, but I'm surrounded by the most wonderful, wonderful friends that I could ever wish for. I'm blessed. I mean, I couldn't thank them enough because they're just there. And I explained to you before, Miguel, about, you know, I get up of a morning and I have to go through this routine of how am I going to get out of bed. And I look to others. I've seen some of your posts where you get up and you're out and about, and I think, right, it's kind of just hooking onto something that makes you get up and out of that bed. And there are days when you might not be able to do it, and that's fine. And you have to just go, I'm going to let that happen today, if you can. I'm in a position in a job where I speak very openly about what this feels like in the best way I can. I don't expect people to understand it. I wouldn't want them to. But the fact that I think I'm open and I'm as honest as I can be, maybe that makes it easier for other people to work around you as well. We live in a society where grief is just not spoken about. It's uncomfortable. And I've faced many of people who've been very uncomfortable by my grief. But I can't really do anything about that. So I would say to people in dark places, whatever your reasons is, you know, wherever you can, write it down. I wrote letters to Michael. I still write letters to him. I write things to myself. It's very, very powerful. It does, you know, and then you read it back and you can say, you know, this is how I felt then. And when you go in those dark places, you can see that you went there and you did come through. And because you don't always feel like you're going to come back out of those places, and that's the scary bit. So, but, you know, I do get an awful lot out of being kind to others. I think it gives me more pleasure than receiving it. It's just so, I don't think there's anything more rewarding than being with someone and you think, well, you know, I've done something to kind of help them a little bit today, no matter how small it is. People have done that for me. I'm surrounded by similar people who give so much and don't expect a thing in return. So I've also had to remove people out of my life who were causing me more pain, who were taking more than I could give, who were leaning on me maybe, or who just were more considered about their own grief. You know, there are people who've known Michael his whole life who I've never seen since his funeral, which was very painful to deal with. But I've kind of, instead of being angry about it anymore, I almost forgive them, because I think that's what they need, is some forgiveness for doing that. I don't suppose they've ever visited it. We've got a memorial bench to him in Camp Hill. So I've had to go through these constant being faced with other people's, I suppose, thoughtlessness as well. So, and that's what usually happens when you're in a dark place. You hone in on all the things that are wrong, all the kinds of people who are hurting you and the pain itself. So it's not an easy thing to do, and it's all relative, but I think there is no one fix to this. For me, you know, I have a ritual. I get up, I allow myself to cry. I've cried every single day since the day Michael died, every morning, every night when I go to bed, and that's how it is. Sometimes people can notice it, sometimes people can't, but I don't even, well, I just do, and I'm his mum, and I probably will cry till the day I die. So I'm releasing what's there, and I'm not always holding it in. Of course, you do have to, because I've got to face the world every day. And it isn't fair. I mean, I head up a company. It is not fair for me to go in and the staff see, particularly in my position, me not looking good or feeling good, or they're treading on eggshells. That's just not right. It's not their fault that this has happened. So if I'm honest with them and say, I'm having a really bad day, this has happened, then it's easier for them. So I found being open and honest, and I know not everybody can do that, was an easier thing for me, is to just tell people this is what's happening and write it down. I started exercising again. You know, unfortunately we lost the family dog, who was like an absolute, like, she was my anchor, and she used to get me up and get me out. And I've had to never, you know, I'm actually doing kind of weight training in Primal Gym. Never in a million years did I think I'd be doing anything like that. But I was encouraged by a friend, and I thought it's a bit, again, it's about that time for you. And it does make me feel better when I come out, in that I've had, I suppose, an hour of where my mind's just a little bit clearer and I'm focused on something, and the pain is there, but I'm not just focusing in on the pain. And I was taught mindfulness, which has got this title, but it is basically about being, I mean, the ethos is be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And, you know, if everybody could just do a little bit of that, it would make a world of difference. I put my whole team through the whole mindfulness course, and there are staff members who say it's transformed their lives. You know, maybe issues they had or conflicts they may have had, they've kind of learned to manage those and not hold on to them. But these things are, there's no one size fits all. And I think the one thing that I still find quite difficult, is the judgment that's out there. So people assume you should be doing things a certain way. You know, I've actually had people in the medical profession say, "Oh, you shouldn't have this pain now. You should not to this level." How?
There's no time you can put on something.
I just don't know how they know. And, you know, who writes these things? So if you're living up to that, then you can imagine people going, if you're faced with some of the medical profession doing that must be horrific. And on the other side, I've had others who say, you know, the reality is there's no way around this. You are going to have to live with this for the rest of your life. And they're real and they're honest with me. But it's the one size fits all, and people saying you should be this, you should be that, do this, do that. I think sometimes it's just maybe trying to get someone to a place saying, what do you feel like you need? And if people say to me, what is it you really want? I would go, Michael. I just want Michael back, and I can't have that. They can't give me that. What can we do to make that bit easier? And I said to you before, sometimes, you know, people come and I just cannot speak. And it's being able to hold the silence. So people will sit with me in silence, but I just know they're there. And I know they're not uncomfortable because they're good friends.
You described the word before and you said empathy. Empathy.
Well, it was one of these things that as you learn through this process, you know, I say to people, I do not want sympathy. Sympathy is, you know, giving me a little hug or I'm not saying I don't want to hug, but it's not the same thing. Empathy is, for a minute or two, is putting yourself in that person's shoes and kind of trying to just feel where they are. You never will, and none of us, I never would want anyone to feel where I am. So, but you just put yourself in their shoes for that moment and think, this person is in so much pain. They're really struggling, and just being there with them. And that's the total difference between empathy and sympathy. And I now feel the people I've got around me, my close friends, if you like, they're the ones who have the empathy. They're the ones who have the compassion. They don't judge. And even on my dark days when I think, people must think I'm doing, I know deep down, when I'm rational again, they don't judge. And I'm not being told constantly by them, you must do this, you must do that, when it feels impossible, they'll just say, well, the worst thing in life has happened to you, so you can do this, and we're there, we're going to hold you, we will be there. Whatever you do, you won't be alone. Just even that, not feeling alone. I think when you're in those dark places, and my God, they are hard to crawl back out of, then that loneliness, even when there's hundreds of people, is the most awful feeling in the world. It's unbearable. And that's the time when you can understand why people think, I can't be here because this is just too much for me. And you feel so alone. But you get to the point where, with those people, the right people, you don't really, it never feels quite as alone as it needs to be. And I would just say to anybody, just talk, write it down. There are people out there. I wrote lots on social media. I've had strangers come to me who've read some of the things I've written, who say, I feel better because I don't feel alone now. Some people have been judged. Some people have been called crazy. If you lose somebody, none of us know what happens. So whatever your belief is, that's your belief. If it's religion, if it's you don't believe in anything, that this is the end, or you believe you're spiritual but maybe not religious, that's entirely up to you. Because nobody can tell you any different. No one can say you're wrong. That's nonsense. Nobody in the world can say that, because absolutely nobody knows. So don't ever feel whatever you say or do, particularly when you've lost somebody, you're mad, or you're behaving mad, or what you're saying is stupid, because it's not. And all the people that might say it to you are just uncomfortable, and that's not your problem.
Completely inspiring, and there's been some key words there and messages to anyone who's listening today, who's been in similar circumstances or going through a dark place, has to face the world. There's a whole host of inspiring stuff, and I wish we could be here for 3 days. But as well as speaking about this, I just need to draw it back to what is needed across our city region, and we must get behind this campaign. It takes a handful of minutes, if that, to sign a petition for something that to me is just common sense. So anyone who's listening today, and you have a friend, a family member, a couple of people at school, a community centre, a football club, mass numbers could quickly get together and make this happen. It would be great if you could help get the 100,000 signatures and
everybody
get this
in the college. I mean, if everybody who attended this college, pupils, staff alike, all signed it, and then they got 5 members of their family to sign it, imagine what we do with just that alone.
It would be done in a day. Well, it's been truly remarkable to have you in. I'm inspired completely. Anything we can do to support, of course, we'll be there. We're going to take to the masses today and try and do what we can to get behind. But we're going to finish today with your final song. So do you want to tell us what it is and why?
So this is by Prince, When Doves Cry, and Prince being one of my favourite artists of all times. I waited 30 years to see him, and fortunately I did get that opportunity to do it. Joe and I had made this pledge. Michael also loved Prince, and we made this pledge that we'd try and get to see people that maybe he would never get the chance to, he will never get the chance to see. So he was one of them, and it was one of the most amazing concerts. People came up to us, we have Michael's flag on, people came up to us in the concert and said, I've got Michael's song, and I can't describe it. But then I went to see Stevie Wonder, because that was the last artist Michael saw, and I was torn about whether I should pick a Stevie Wonder or a Prince song. So this kind of fitted both because Stevie Wonder actually played this at his concert
Oh, wow.
as a tribute to Prince. So he did Songs in the Key of Life, and he did a set in the middle, clearly heartbroken over losing Prince, who I believe was a good friend of his. So it kind of is a combination of the two. Similarly, Hyde Park, Stevie Wonder, we had the flag within a minute. There was, 60,000 people there. A young girl come over and said, "Are you Michael Molloy's mum? I've got his song on my phone." And the next minute, there were kids like all coming up to me, and they were like they were all on each other's shoulders. They were hugging me. It was remarkable. It was unbelievable. And of course, Stevie, I didn't get to see what Michael saw with Stevie Wonder. I know people said in Festival, that probably nothing will ever match him in terms of his performance. If what I saw in Hyde Park was anything to go by, then yeah. So it's a kind of
balance
between the two, because he played it at his concert as well. So, but Prince again needs no introduction. True. Come on.
Thank you very much. We will see you all next week, guys. Enjoy this.